Hey, what is up, everybody? Jeremy here, and guys, I'm very excited for the conversation we're going to have today because it's been something I've been talking about quite a bit more on the podcast, and that's family, how we educate our kids. And our guest today is Julia Barbaro, and she's somebody that does it all. She's not only a homeschooling mom, but she oversees her own life and marriage, as well as her coaching business, which is a 7-figure business she co-founded with her husband. And she's also writing a bunch of children's books. So I'm excited to dive into that today. Julia, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. This is super exciting. So happy to talk with you.
So I want to find out first and foremost, because you have a very unique viewpoint on things. I guess for you, and I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. It seems like putting family first was like a really important thing for you. I guess why?
That's a great question. I have to say, coming from a family, Irish Catholic family, everyone was divorced.
Oh, same here.
Okay. So you know what it's like. A lot of divorce in the family. Marriage was important, but for some reason it just didn't work out. And there was something about it that bothered me as a young girl. And I always desired to have a strong, healthy marriage. But I didn't have that example, that strong example. When I met my husband, there was just something. I'm like, that's the guy. That's the guy that's going to help me, get my dream, basically. Of he was also a family man. And
be entertained at the same time.
Yes, thank you for that. Because whoever knows Gino Barbaro knows how lively he is. And my life has been very entertaining, Jeremy. Thank you for sure. But I have to say, I met him. He owned a restaurant with his family, and the whole family dynamic was just beautiful for me, and I just desired that. Once we got married, I thought, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking to stay home, raise my family, to have my husband support that financially, but also support me in wanting to do that. Because a lot of people are like, no, you need to find a career, you need to work, you need to be out in the world.
It's tough in this day and age, because I think at the same time, I don't know, society also kind of looks at it weird. Like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and that was seen as admirable. And I think now for some reason it's not seen that way. Like, everybody should be working, but if we don't want to, we don't have to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Well, the crazy thing, Jeremy, is it's almost looked down upon. It's almost like, oh, you didn't go to college, so you didn't, you didn't. There's no career for you, so you decided to stay home. And I'm out there just telling people, embrace it, enjoy it, because what we're doing is we're raising these little tiny people, and in the moment you think, well, what's the point of this? They don't even say thank you. You know what I mean? It's like, what am I doing?
Oh, they do if I say, what do you say?
Yes,
now, what do you
but
say?
Do they mean it? You know what I mean? Do they truly mean it? But we're raising these little people to be out in the world, and they're going to make a difference. And I don't think we realize it because we can't see the future. We can't see them older. We just see them small, and we see our, if we get a shower in as a stay-at-home mom, it's a really, really good day. And that's, so we're living in that moment sometimes. We don't see what could be later on.
It's really interesting though, because I think that's a viewpoint I don't think we quite get, right? Like as a mom, you're helping to create kind of what the next generation looks like. Right. And I'm not really trying to make this political, but Ronald Reagan once said freedom is never more than one generation away, right? Yes. It's kind of if we don't raise our kids the right way, we're not going to kind of like where we go, and that may be part of why we're seeing a lot of stuff we're seeing. But family is vital.
Yeah. 100%. And that's what I've seen. And through my experience, because we have 6 children, we've been married since 1998, so you guys can all do that math. But we have 6 children aged from 8 to 23. And yes, it was a huge challenge. It was lonely at times. It was like, what am I doing? Should I go find a job? There was so many questions and so many stories that I could share with you of me just questioning what I was doing. But I was responsible. I said, this is the life I wanted. This is what I chose, and I'm going to follow through.
So let me ask you this then, because not only are you a mom of 6 and a stay-at-home mom, but you're also homeschooling, which that in itself is a difficult thing to do, and it's something that we're starting to get into. So I'm just kind of learning about this, and we've had a lot of guests on the show talking about this because it's something I just want to learn a lot about because I'm getting into it. So I guess for you, number one, why did you want to do that? And number two, how did you get comfortable with that? Because I know initially, that has to be hard.
Yeah. I have to say, so my sister started it before I did. And I kind of gave her a hard time because I'm like, only weird people. This is a long time ago. I said, well, just the weird people do that. Are you sure you want to do that?
So here's the thing I'll say about that. When I was younger, we said only the weird kids are homeschooled. Yes. Now, the homeschool kids 20 years later are the normal ones. Exactly. It was good to be weird then.
Yes. We didn't tell many people. I mean, we were very quiet about it. I'll just tell you that. We came from a town that was really into their school. And so if you didn't send your kid to that school, there was something not right. But we did. We thought about it. I kind of checked it out quietly. I looked into it. I met some people that did it. I'm like, these people actually are pretty cool. You know, their kids are really balanced. They have really good dynamics in the family. I said, let me try this out. And when I approached my husband, he's like, hold on a second, are you sure? So there was a conversation there, and that's really important in the marriage to remember, is the communication is vital in a marriage if you want a strong marriage. And we went through really difficult times. But this
was something we talked about on your podcast with Gino. Like, you have to be willing to, like, the ground rule has to be like, you have to be willing to say what you're willing to say without like hurting the other person, right? I think that's really important.
Yes,
you know?
Definitely. But two, it is to know why you're doing something.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, in the beginning, we didn't know why. We didn't have a reason why we were going to homeschool. We liked what we saw, but we were so afraid of the outcome because we didn't know what it was. You can't see the outcome. And I'm going to be honest with you, Jeremy. It took until my daughter, who is now 23, graduated high school, applied for college, and got in, for me to say, wow, we did a good job. That was a long time. I questioned it every year.
You got to really see if the investment works then by that point.
So it's hard to understand, is it working for you? Is it not? It became more of a lifestyle for us. It became more of just not homeschool. We just did school, and then we had family. It just all went together. It just became our life.
So how does that work then, I guess, logistically? Because, you know, number one, 6 kids, that's a lot to be teaching because, you know, like, but at the same time, like, you look at it and, like, so I was a high school teacher and they put me in a room with 40 kids, which I was not prepared to do. Right. So maybe 6 kids is easier. I don't know. So when you're looking at that, like how do you approach it? Like, you know, do you get involved with different groups? Like what do you even do to get started in that arena?
Definitely look in your community. It's different now, and I'm sure you know that with online, but there's something about being in a room with other people, especially with other mothers that align with your values, with the children, like, because it's really who we're surrounding ourselves with, that whether we're going to be successful in certain things, and homeschooling is one of them. So if we're around families, other homeschool families that are encouraging us and helping us out, you know, we're going to succeed more than if there's a lot of complainers in that group and, you know, they're kind of down, and you know what I mean? So it's important to find a group that you're comfortable with and they do align with your values, and the kids get along, because that's another thing, is that we think all
that's what's been interesting,
and lovely, and it's not the case.
Yeah, like we live in a lake, and like our I guess most of the kids here are homeschooled. I don't know why, because the school districts are pretty decent around here.
Okay.
But most of the kids are homeschooled in the lake, and they're all about her age and coming into her age, which has been interesting. So she's already playing with those kids, I guess, before she's kind of starting with that process and getting into that group.
It's so important. But this is another thing, and I want to be clear. The kids are important, but so are we as the moms. Because if we're going to find other women that understand the value of marriage, and maybe even come into the conversation saying good things about their husband, saying good things about marriage in general, about family life, that's what we're looking for. Because a lot of us want to be responsible. We want to do the right thing. But it's when we have voices coming in, like outside our home, they do. Sometimes it ruins what we're trying to make at home. It's really weird.
Well, that's why I'm so careful, frankly, about like even like the TV my kids watch. You know what I mean? Because like it can, you know, number one, they don't watch much of it, but like when they're watching it, I'm very careful. Like there's like, you know, 3 TV shows I let my 3-year-old watch. Right. You know, one of them is the original Power Rangers, just because there's part of me that likes that, from like the 1990s. She watches this little British show about this little dog family called Bluey. So she doesn't watch a lot of like TV I wouldn't feel bad about. But like you're saying, they need to get the right viewpoint about like what is it to have a family and why is it important.
Yes, and you know, you mentioned TV, and that's one thing that I have to tell you that I look back now and I'm thankful, is that the kids weren't influenced by the school district, because we have no idea what they're teaching the kids. We don't know what the kid next to them is teaching them or what they're showing them. And that wasn't a reason why we homeschooled, but looking back, I'm thankful that we did because of that. Because we do have, it's like we have the computers, they're all in the living room, the TV's in the living room. We do have access. We're not on top of the kids. We don't, you know, we're not like that, but we teach them why things are not appropriate, why things are better for us to listen to or not listen to. And I think that's really that conversation as a mom, to especially we have 5 girls. So it's really, it's a big deal. You know, why, instead of saying, no, you can't watch this, well, what's the reason? and of course age appropriate, and we have to change the wording and all that. It's a challenge, but it's a
Well,
challenge, and I mess up all the time.
We just canceled Disney Plus in my house recently.
Yes.
And it's funny though, because my 3-year-old, this is the way, like so we still have like the DirecTV stream where they can watch it, and like the stuff on the Disney Channel, if I'm watching, isn't that bad, but the Disney Plus is kind of like a little rough.
Yeah.
So, but she tells people, Daddy canceled Disney because Disney misbehaved. When they apologize, he'll buy it again.
I love it. See, I love it because you told her a good answer for a 3-year-old.
Exactly. I didn't just make it up.
I love it.
But it's interesting because that's a really good point, because like I've had Tina Deskovich on the show from Moms for Liberty, and one of the biggest things that they've been doing is like looking at like what's going on in schools, because I think for some reason they forget, like, hey, we're actually paying for this. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are kids.
I do. And I think a lot of people forget that is we are their ultimate guide. If we're going to send them to school, that's fine. I know a lot of people that do, but we really need to be responsible and take care of, okay, what'd you learn today? Tell me about it. And let the kids be open to telling you, because a lot of times the kids are afraid to tell you things because you're going to get mad at them. And so it's that moment of, okay, my reaction to what they're about to tell me is really, really crucial. Because are they going to come back next time and talk to me? And that's one of the things I learned. My wife is
really good at that, by the way. She's incredible at that. She's like, Adelaide, what happened, honey? You can tell me. Like, I'm not going to be mad. We need to talk about it, because you don't want to hide those things from mommy. Like, that's really, like, she's incredible. She's a great mom. But I think that it's really important. And I guess, like, logistically, like, looking at it, Julia, like, how do you set up your day? Like, how do you manage kids on different levels, right? Because they're all taking different subjects. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that, I have to say, has been the biggest challenge. And finally, our youngest is in 3rd grade, and I feel so free. Like, it's just hard to explain, going, because you have to, like, my daughter, our oldest daughter was 15. She was in 10th grade. I was pregnant with our last, and I'm going to be honest, I slept the whole year. I don't even remember it. I was just exhausted. I was wiped out. I don't even remember. And I said, Gabrielle, I am so sorry. She's like, Mom, I learned life skills. I learned how to help with you, help with the kids, take care of the kids, cook, the whole thing. She could run my house. She's like, I would never have learned that if you weren't in that situation. And so I think we have to be a little bit less hard on ourselves, because we want the kids to learn every single thing in a book, but it's their, like I said before, we're guiding them to be out in the world. What kind of people they are that's up to us. We're guiding them with that. And sometimes we forget how important that part is, but it's a challenge. It's a trial and error. Absolutely.
So are your kids, like, when they're doing schoolwork, like, are they on it all day? Are they taking breaks? Do you work for a couple hours a day? Like, how do you structure that part?
We've, like I said earlier, we've tried everything. We've tried scheduling, charting. I mean, and what's worked for different children. And that's something we have to remember, is each kid is unique. So, for instance, our Sophia, who is going to be a senior this year, she's very orderly and structured. And so I help her make a schedule. And her schedule is, we do it together, so she feels like it's part of it. She's part of it, and she follows it, And so our next youngest is Veronica, who will be in 9th grade this year, who does not like school. And she is my biggest challenge, because she doesn't like reading unless it's super interesting and exciting. And so that alone is such a challenge for me, but it's good for me because I'm learning patience. It's where we learn our patience.
But I think it's interesting too, because like here's the issue, right? Like, as I mentioned, I taught high school, and I think the issue is like, with that many kids, they all have to be forced to learn the same way. And I think the thing that's interesting you're talking about here is how individualized people are. Like, for me, I'm weird, Julia. I'm really weird. Like, I could have been where I'm at without even going to any school at all.
Yes,
I was always I was my parents had me reading Tom Clancy books at like 9 years old. Like, I was always somebody that was actively interested in learning. Not every kid is, you know what I mean? But for me, like, I was driven in that. But you have to understand where kids are coming from. Are they more auditory? Or are they more visual? Are they more into reading? Do they need more of you? Like, it sounds like with your one daughter, you act kind of like a guidance counselor.
Yes, and I have to sit there, otherwise she won't do it. And I think that, again, is when it comes down to me as a person, we forget that, the homeschool mom is a person, and I have emotions and feelings and trying to figure things out. And we also
you have bad days and good days aside from learning.
100%. But when we get nervous, when we get, oh my gosh, my kid's not up to grade or learning what they're supposed to, we sometimes get angry. And so we take that out on the kids, and they're confused because why is mom yelling at me when, something happened? And I'm just so nervous that they're not going to succeed in life. It's our fear, right? As a parent. But it is trial and error. And I constantly have to tell myself, you know what? I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can today because that's all I could give. You know, I could hire a tutor, which we've tried before, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works with certain kids, sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's what it is. It's you have to try something. If it doesn't work for your one child, try something different. And when you do find something that works, hold on to it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the kids are getting older now, so you know you're starting to find a little bit more time in your day. And one of the things that you've wanted to do is start helping other people with their kids, and you've actually started writing some children's books. So I want to know, number one, you know, why did you decide that? And then number two, like the titles. I love these titles. The Cannolis Exploded, a Gelato Blast. Like, so why and how did you come up with the ideas for these?
Oh gosh, well, my husband and I do a lot of work with his company, with his community, because a lot
they
of
are
people,
Italian food, so I guess that makes sense.
It's Italian, of course. We have to go Italian. I mean, come on. That's all we. My husband had a restaurant. That's all we do. That's all I do in life is cook, clean up, cook again. You know, and so why not food? But we want to share the message of responsibility, on how important responsibility is, because a lot of us, well, we blame everything. You know, well, my childhood was this way, my mom was this way, this is why I'm like this. And once we decide, because it's a choice, to be responsible, to be responsible of our thoughts, of the words we use, of the action that's when we stop blaming everything else and everyone else in our life. And it's so freeing. It's amazing, because now we can just make a decision. And that's why we wrote these books. It's for children, but it's really for the parent.
Can you hold that up a little higher for people seeing the video? Oh, that's cool.
This is
Look
the
at that.
Cannolis Exploded. And I love it because it has, the first one has three characters in it. And then the second one has some more characters. Same characters, but just added a few.
Oh, cool.
But it's basically something bad happens. And these three characters have to decide what to do. And they all choose something different, according to their name. We have Responsible Rhino, Pity Party Pig, and Creative Caterpillar. And
my pig is offended,
awesome.
by the way. He does not do pity parties.
That's awesome. And so the kids relate, but so do the parents. Because I've gotten a lot of people call me and say, listen, this book really helped me. And I said, that's what it's for. It's for all of us. It's not just for the 7 to 10-year-olds out there. It's for the parents to live a life of responsibility. And then we went into the second book, the Gelato Blast. We added a couple more characters, encouraging elephant, because like I said earlier, we can encourage other people. We have such an impact on other people. You know, we sometimes we go to the grocery store, we can choose to say something to the person behind the counter talking to us. Maybe they're having a bad day, or you just, we can decide to be that encourager. But then we have to ask ourselves, who's encouraging us? Like, who are we talking to? Who's our mentor? We have Mentor Moose in the second book, which is hysterical, because a lot of times we listen to somebody and maybe that's not the right person. Maybe we really need to think about that. So who are we listening to?
I'm just waiting for Gino's first book, Multifamily Fox and the Growing Dollar.
Oh, I love it. I'll pass that along. I love it.
I think that's so important, though, because I think, number one, we grabbed your books for my kids, which is really exciting. But number two, I think it has to be communicated early on to children how important that is. Because I know there's a bunch of different book series like that. I know there's a book series Glenn Beck promotes that we've gotten for the kids and stuff too, because they have to be communicated to in that way, right? Because especially under the ages of 5, because these are things they're going to have the rest of their life.
Right. And it has to be fun, Jeremy. When the kids laugh about something and they're laughing about the characters, that's when they're learning something. And when you can actually mention the characters throughout the day, puts a smile on their face, things change. Because a lot of times as parents, we're a little too serious. And we take it too seriously, if you know what I mean. So,
well, that's important too, because I know, even in my marriage, I'm the much more serious one, and my wife is the much more insouciant one. And I feel like that balance is actually even important, not just in your kids, but also in a marriage too.
100%. I always tell people the best advice, because they're like, what's your advice? You've been married so long. Have a sense of humor. Because if you don't, it's going to be really challenging. There's a lot of things you can laugh off instead of getting insulted and getting mad at. So a sense of humor is so important. And the same with just in family in general, because we are so worried that we're going to mess our children up that sometimes we're in a bad mood just because of that. We don't even realize it. And so when I said earlier about responsibility of our thoughts, start paying attention to your thoughts that you're having, because we could change them. We could change them. If it's always negative, we can change them to something less negative. You don't have to start gigantic. Start small.
I'm curious how you apply that. Like how does that work for you? Because I'm sure like, you're working with kids all day. Some days you don't feel good. Some days,
Sure.
some days there's money things you got to worry about. Like life
Right.
happens, right? And I guess for you, like how do you handle that personally so you don't show up that way for the kids?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like I said earlier, it's that trial and error. And it's that life experience from the beginning when I look back till now. And it's the moment when I try to figure out, well, what is this life coaching thing? My husband and I became life coaches because it was so fascinating. And you could help. And I really made fun of it early on. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. But I looked into it, and that was the moment where I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And so when I got certified for life coaching, that's when things for me changed, and my husband as well. But for me personally, I started paying attention to just when I woke up, my first thought, if it was negative, my whole day would be negative. And it was pretty wild, and we could do that, and we could encourage our children to do that, but in a fun, loving way.
So, you mentioned in the book, the big thing is like teaching kids responsibility. And one of the things I think is really important, I know my parents did this with me, and it's something I've done with my kids as well, is like, even at a young age, like the things they're responsible for. And I'm like, I look at, we have a couple dozen chickens. So every morning my 3-year-old knows she goes out to me with the barn with her basket and she picks up the eggs. That's what she does. And then she puts them in the fridge because that's what she's capable of doing. And I guess when you look at it, like, how have you applied that with your kids and making sure they stay responsible? Because number one is getting the ideas, as you mentioned in the book, but what does that look like in action?
That's a great question. And again, just what we were saying before, each kid is so different. So, we have one son, he's second in line. And I have to tell you, when I say, okay, guys, it's time to clean up, 3 of the girls will just get to it. And he sometimes will just stand there, have no idea what to do because there's no guidance. Okay, so a lot of people, we forget this, kids too, they don't understand what that means to clean up. So some of the children need an actual, first you're going to do this, then you're going to do this. You have to actually guide them. And I know that sounds like he should know, but we have to guide them how to do some things. And some children just naturally know because they watch you, they follow you. But some kids aren't as aware. And it doesn't mean anything because my son is like super brilliant, mathematical in all the finance and all that.
But I think the seriousness is also important in that as well because, like, as you mentioned, like we've worked on that with my kids, but my wife also plays, she'll turn on the cleanup song by Dora the Explorer because my 3-year-old sings and cleans up.
Yes. And I think that's what the point is. It's like how we're guiding them. But at the same time, as my kids are older, I have to figure out what are they capable of. That's why I love that you know what your child is capable of and gives them that task. And so once in a while we can see how far we can get. You know what I mean? And I think that's the fun of being a parent. It's like, how much can you do today? And I know what my kids are capable of, and I could, like they literally can run the house if I go away.
But you know what's interesting too is like I think a lot of parents tend to like quash their kids' willingness, if this makes sense. Like my 1.5-year-old, sure, she can't mop the floor, she can't do all this stuff, but she has little kids' toys and she makes a mess while I'm trying to clean up, trying to also help clean up. But like in her mind, she's helping. Exactly. So I think like we say, oh, good job, Emmy, you're really helping. Mommy and Daddy really appreciate it. Whereas other parents are like, stop, you're getting in the way. Like you can't quash their willingness either.
That's the boundary thing. And I think a lot of times we think about our own boundaries. And a lot of times as the parents, we step into our children's boundary. And I say that because same with me. If the kids are doing
I've
the
never
dishes,
heard anybody say that before. That's a great point.
That's amazing. If the kids are doing the dishes, I don't like how they're doing them. The average mother, the average parent would be like, here, you go do something else. I'll take care of it. And so what we did was I gave them a chore. I gave them something to do. They're going to do it the best way they can. I have 2 options. I can just say, let them do it, let them figure it out, or say, you know what, you're doing a really great job. Look, if you do this part, if you want my help, I can help you. You can ask them. You could show them something new, or you can let them do it their own way. Because our way is not only the better way. It's just our way. It's how we learned it. And so when we step into the kids' boundaries, a lot of times, they feel like, well, they don't know how to do anything. And so they're not going to help anymore. So. And
then you wonder why at 18 years old they don't want to do anything with you, or they don't want to be involved with you. Like you can't like if you quash a kid's willingness, you're taking so much away from them.
Absolutely. And give them say that was great. I loved how you did that. I never saw it that way. I never saw someone do it like that. That's amazing. Thanks for showing me a new way, because you're encouraging them to do it more.
Julia, I have loved this conversation, and I've been looking forward to it. So I'm glad we finally got to do this. For people listening, If they want to find out more about you, if they want to get the books, where's going to be the best place for our listeners to do that?
So JuliaandGino.com. My husband and I there have both their books there. Both the books are on there, and there's even a cute little video that we made. We have coloring pages that you can print out, have the kids color, which my older kids adore doing that. You can also check us out on Jake and Gino's site. We have a podcast called The Julia and Gino Show, where we talk about family life, marriage. We talk about business, raising a family in the business, everything you can imagine. We talk about that.
Well, Julia Barbaro, thank you so much for your time today. This was awesome, and I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you so much.